hello, everyone. I was back here dancing. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to episode number 40, which is so huge, of A Girl Like Me Live, which is an interactive discussion series that we host monthly, the Well Project, and where we sit down with different members from the community. We sit and share our different expertise and what we know and what we've learned, and we're really focused on wellness. And today we are focused on mindfulness. I am so excited to be joined by Louise, one of our community advisory co-chairs. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. I'm so honored, and I cannot wait to learn from you today. So if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself, we'll get started.
Thanks, Cece. Wow, number 40. Mad. I'm Louise Vallace. I'm the founder of Auntie Lou's House. Live with HIV for, I've lost track now. It's over 25 years. Maybe it's 30. And I am the co-chair of the proud co-chair of the Well Project, CAB, Community Advisory Board, and I am a HIV advocate, and I really also look around, I like to focus my theme around wellness and living well. Yeah.
I loved it. We had a moment to chat before we joined, and I just had all these questions, and I'm going to center myself, start somewhere. So I came across you a few years ago on the internet, where you had even joined the Well Project as a worker, and it was this thing like Auntie Lou's House, and I was, who's Auntie Lou? Where did this come from?
Well, okay, so I have 3 children, and I had them when I was quite young. I mean, I had my son when I was like 23 years old. So I was like a young mum, and my second son when I was 24, my daughter when I was 28. So as they were growing up in the house, I was like a single mum, and, all their friends used to come over. And I had this thing, because I come from a Caribbean background, and I was raised to call everyone auntie. And it kind of irritated me, because as I got older, I thought, well, they're not my auntie. So why am I forced to call all these people auntie, only to realize they're not actually blood related, And I just didn't like that. And my children didn't like it, because I thought I'd bring them up all very bohemian and, they're all millennials, so they can, have choice. And so I never got them to call anybody auntie, and their friends never called me auntie. But my house was a place where I think people felt safe. They could come over, and it was like a judgment-free zone. I would prefer my kids to be home and their friends rather than street corners, put it that way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I remember making a joke. It was with my daughter in particular, and she had her friend come over, and she said, "Oh, hi, what do I call your mum?" And my daughter said, "Just call her Louise." I said, "No, you can call me auntie." And I said it to wind my daughter up. And then my daughter started laughing and said, "Well, what's wrong with you? She said, "Look, no one calls her auntie. Just call her Louise, just because she's older than you. Just call her Louise." So I said, "No, it's all right. You can call me auntie." But I was doing it as a joke. So that's where that came from. So as the children got older and stuff, and I came up with Auntie Lou's House, I wanted to kind of recreate what was in that home, which was people that maybe didn't feel seen, and a place to feel kind of safe and to be yourself and to relax and so and I remember I've got a podcast, and I said to my daughter, "What do you think I should call the podcast?" And she said, "Call it Auntie Lou's Hour." So that's where it came from. It was just like a joke there. And then actually today I was thinking that I started to call myself like Auntie Lou's House, Auntie Lou. And when I thought I looked relatively young. So I'm doing it on purpose. This whole kind of anti getting old, anti aging. Well, I'm about embracing who you are and embracing those titles. I am getting older. I'm not trying to turn back the clock. If I wanted to, I could make myself look all young, but why want to do that? So I deliberately chose that name as a way to kind of rebel to everyone and say, yeah, I'm getting older, and I'm all right with that. I don't need to cling on to this idea of. So it's all of that together, because yeah, it was all of that kind of meshed together. Yeah.
I've always wondered. I see the logo and I see all the work that you do on
Yeah.
social media. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking, I was thinking of like, is that what mindfulness is? Is you've like made this decision that this is how you're going to, maybe that's where we start. What is mindfulness? And we'll continue to explore how it can be used as a tool for women living with HIV.
Well, you just asked a question. Was that what it was? Well, here's an example. We as a society, think about the way that we look, and I suppose, okay, so mindfulness is a way of kind of staying in that present moment, but then also being in the present moment, which is kind of slightly different. And what I mean by being is, sometimes we ruminate a lot. We feel quite anxious. We feel quite concerned about what's going to happen. Is he cheating? Am I going to get sacked? Can I pay my bills? Is my child going to get expelled from school? Is HIV, what are people going to think about my status? All those things we plays in our head. And mindfulness is a way of kind of staying in the present moment. And I don't know if you're thinking, oh, what do you mean by the present moment? But it's like trying, and it's a practice. It's not something that just happens. You have to practice at it. Not worry about what's in the past. I got HIV. Not worrying about what's in the future. What are people going to think about me? But staying right now, like what is happening right now. And right now I am drinking a cup of tea. And when I drink that tea, I will taste it. Oh, okay. So it's got a sweet taste to it. It's warm. So I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm focusing right here, right now on drinking the tea. So that's basically what mindfulness is, if that makes sense. And it can be, and it can, and you can use it in all different ways. The biggest one that really kind of worked for me is mindfulness of like walking. Like just so when I'm walking, I would put my heel on the floor, my sole on the floor, my toes, and I would feel each step as I'm walking. So when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about the past. What happened when I get HIV? What's happened? The past. I'm not thinking about the future. What are people going to think? I'm actually focusing on walking. So one might say, if I accidentally like cut myself and I say, ow, I got a knife and I actually hurt myself and it's painful. And then I go on, oh my God, it's painful. Why did I leave that knife there? It's not my fault. They should have washed it. It's already happened. But the dialogue that we kind of continue on with is worse sometimes than the cut itself. So it's mindfulness is a practice of kind of looking at ways to quieten the mind, looking at ways to connect with the body, and and looking at ways to focus on the present moment, like focus on what you're doing at each moment. And I'm not sure about you, but for me it's an ongoing practice because I find it quite difficult. My mind is always going. um, I can get quite highly anxious. You know, did I say it wrong? Did I do it wrong? Did I say the wrong thing? Did I behave in the wrong way? What is that person thinking of me? Oh, you know, and the noise in my head is consistent. But the thing is, where I've been practicing, I notice it now. So what the practicing does is it allows you to notice, and then you think, okay, so what can I do? So it's not about being critical. Oh, stop saying that. Oh, you know, take those out of your head. That's wrong. That's bad. It's about that balance. And actually, you could say, you know, get into the stage where it's not about bad, it's not about good. It just is the way that it is. Because if we say it's bad, you know, oh, I'm thinking about these things and I'm anxious and what do they think about me? And I look wrong and I've said it wrong and everything's not, you know, that's great. That's kind of like negative, I suppose, or something that you don't want. But if on the other hand, I've got lots of joy and I'm great and I feel confident, everything's great, everything's on track, I want that. But actually, it's not necessarily about pushing away and pulling the good stuff and pushing away the bad stuff. It's about that kind of balance. How do you balance the two? I mean, you know, there's depression. You know, people live with depression, and it's not about necessarily pushing it away and feeling angry or annoyed or upset about HIV, about depression, about anxiety. It just is. It's there. So how do we find a way to to live in a way where you don't suffer as much, where you suffer less? This isn't about mindfulness, isn't about eradicating pain and everything's wonderful. It's not. It's about how you live your day to day so it doesn't hurt as much. It's not as painful. And then when the pain comes, you're able to work with it in a way that causes less. It doesn't pain. So if you have that cut, ow, it hurts, but okay, it's happened. How can I move on with that?
That is better than any definition I could have gotten from Google or any of those online resources. Thank you. I don't think I've ever had it broken down in such a way. And there are comments that came in on Instagram. I know that we can't showcase them here, but it was one comment that came in particularly that says that it can be hard to not worry about the future. And I sort of got stuck on that comment and thinking a little emotional because I think that's where a lot of my anxiety and my worry comes from is that I'm thinking about something that has not even happened yet, that may
Yeah,
not even happen, and
yeah,
I'm going through all of the emotions
yeah,
as if it's happened already. And
yeah,
like, well, okay, so if I could, and I really enjoyed the part where you said like listening, getting in tune with your body and everything, because I think we live in a society where it's like sort of pushed that maybe you need a pill for something. It has to be some extravagant mean of treatment for it to work. So I need a pill, or I need to go see this doctor, or I need to go see that. And like learning that I possibly could regulate those emotions and feelings on my own. So when my therapist say something like breathe, I'm like, miss, this breathing sounds so corny. I breathe all the time anyway, but intentionally doing it. And when you were describing about the steps, I could really see that. Okay, I'm not focused on everything else. I'm focused on how my foot is hitting this ground.
yeah, yeah. Like, um, back in the day, so I think it's quite useful to talk about what I was like pre this discovery, so to speak. I would be cooking and I would have the television on, and then I'd be on the phone to someone while I'm cooking. And but now what I do is I cook and I focus on every time I'm stirring that spoon, when I'm turning on the gas and I put the pot on. I try, and I say I try because there were days when I've got Netflix on in the kitchen, I'm doing three things at once. But when I'm trying to be conscious, I try and see if I can cook more mindfully, if I can walk more mindfully, meaning without the phone on my arm. You know, if I can if I can listen when my mum's talking to me more mindfully instead of texting while she's talking or doing a few other things. It's just giving your attention. Paying attention to the present moment. And then when you do that, you're not so thinking about the future as much. Do you know what I
I
mean?
definitely see how, like, why it would be important to learn more about this as a way to navigate a life with HIV every day, because there are so many points that can be triggering, whether a person feels like they're like healed or how many years they've been living with it. Like, there's something about, especially working with moms who are living with HIV. Like, you could talk to a mom who had their child like over 20 years ago, and you start talking about that experience, and you start talking about how maybe they didn't have a chance to breastfeed that child. Those tears will still come.
Yeah.
Those tears are still, because that feeling. um, so like continuing to stay in the moment and realizing, there was a comment said, I love how Lou says mindfulness prepares us to handle the problem as they come for us, to be grounded to tackle those hard times. So thank you.
Yeah.
Quote. I saw some
Yeah.
other comments come up. So much of our community is in the comments on both Instagram and Facebook. I'm sure we have some YouTube viewers as well. Thank you all for being here. Look, like, I see why they call you auntie, because I could have listened to you talk forever. He's like, okay, what I got to do next? So,
I do think though the thing to remember is that it's ongoing. We see a lot of people on the socials. They've made it. Their life is perfect. Just do this. Everything's wonderful. It's an ongoing practice, and I think that's what the key is. It's not about most things in life. There's a goal. I want to get to this goal. And when I get to this goal, I'll have what I want. The goal, this is actually, look, when I was younger, my goal was to get a boyfriend. I was like, I don't know, 15, 16, 17. It wasn't till I was 18, that I met someone. Oh, what's that going to be like, having a boyfriend? That was a goal, because you think, oh my God, maybe I'll never get a boyfriend. I don't know. And then after that, my goal was to get married, because that's what life was about, as far as I was concerned in them days. And then the goal was to have children. And then the goal was to get a house. That was the goal. And then you think that when you reach these goals, life is good and that's it. But actually, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't I reached those goals, but they weren't what I thought they were. My goal now is to equip myself so that when shit goes down, I have the resources to deal with it. When I'm feeling sad or lonely or anxious, I have the resources to deal with it. When I'm angry or full of rage, I have the resources to deal with it. When I feel shame or embarrassed or fearful, I have the resources to deal with it. That's the goal. And the goal, I know, is going to be a lifetime. It will be a lifetime. It will be until I die. I'll be working on this. And, you can work your body physically. You're an athlete, and you go running and you do your training and you're doing your sit-ups and you're Every day you're banging the gym. But actually, your mental health, how do you work it? If you're working your physical body and you've got your muscles and you've got your six pack, yeah, look at me, I look great, I feel great, look at me. But what about the mental health? How do you work that out? How do you work it? Mindfulness. That's how. It's practicing every day, practicing. So I spoke about things like, like walking, meditation, or cooking, or, plaiting your hair, greasing your skin. Back in the day, I'd put it on and I'm rushing out the house. Now I'm just taking my time and I think, actually, let me see my elbow feels like a little bit dark today, let me see how it feels, all that is mindfulness, operating in a mindful way. But then also there is breathing. There is breathing. And what breathing does, it helps to stop the rumination, the thoughts in the head, because there are many studies that show that breathing practices can help to rewire pathways in your brain. Back in the day, people thought mindfulness and meditation and, breathing practices was all woo-woo. It's not. There's scientific, there's evidence that proves it works. So that's another area that one could go down, get into a habit of just breathing. There's something called coherent breathing, which I love. It's one of my favorite breaths. And you breathe in for 6 and you breathe out for 6. If you can't do 6, do 3. Breathe in for 3, breathe out for 3. If you can't do 3, do 1, do 5, do 4. But maximum of 6, which, breathing in and breathing out. But it's a practice. You work towards it. When I first started, I had difficulties with my breath. I didn't understand where the breath was, what the breath was, how it can help. All these people talking about breathing in and out. I don't understand what you're talking about. I can't do it. It's difficult. But then I understand now that it's a practice, and you do what you can. And whatever practice you do, we try and do it in a way where we're not criticizing ourselves. I should have done it today. I didn't do it today. The thoughts in the head. Have you tried it?
I started with breathing, and it was a new tactic that come from my therapist, because like I said, I was like, Miss, you notice that like it don't seem like it's going to do nothing, like breathing.
Yeah.
And what she said, and she explained to me about how like we don't take our full breaths all the way, and how like I need to get some of the hormones out of my gut into my brain. And I was like, oh, all of that, I didn't realize all of that went into it. And I saw
Yeah.
a comment come up from Krista that says, I think we're so ingrained to multitask and focus on so many different things at once. And as soon as she said that, like that is the story of my
Yeah.
life. Like I think about how often I have so many different things in my hand, and I'm like, okay, this got to go in the trash can, this got to go in the sink, and I mean, I put the thing that was supposed to go in the sink in the trash can, and now everything's lost, and I can't even retrace my steps because it
Yeah.
was going on at once. If only I had the. Sometimes it feels like a privilege, the freedom to slow down. How do you
Yeah.
like? How do you put your foot down and say no? I need to be mindful.
That's really difficult. I mean, that's really difficult. I mean, even today, or yesterday, I said, "Oh my God, I've got so much to do. I've got this, and this," and I was thinking about how much I have to do, and I noticed what I was doing, and then I thought, well, actually, why don't I just think about what I need to do right now, and what if I just make a plan? Just make a plan about the things I need to do instead of worrying and the thoughts going round and round in my head. I think I think that I think that there's something called the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So one side is where you rest, It's called rest and digest. I'll keep it simple, but it's like rest and digest. And the other side is fight or flight. So what we need as a society, particularly us women, is to activate the rest and digest. But actually, we're always in fight or flight. And fight or flight is not a bad thing, because sometimes if you're about to cross the road and a car's coming, you need to activate the fight or flight. Shit, I need to move out the way. But the problem is sometimes we stay in that. We stay in that heightened anxiety, that heightened, activation. And what breath work does, what mindfulness does, what staying in the present moment does, what maybe staying off your phone while you're eating your dinner does, and these are all practices, is it activates the parasympathetic, so the rest and digest part of your brain, and you can rewire. It's plastic. So certain breathing exercises, being mindful, it can help to retrain your brain that everything's all right, and then we activate the rest and digest part of our brains. But it is a practice. And some people, I mean, this is where yoga comes in, because people who find it difficult to maybe stay present and, find it difficult to maybe slow down, because it's not easy. It's not for everyone. I know I found it really difficult. Yoga can help, because you are focusing on what's happening in your body at that time, right? To, put your hands up, lean to one side, like breathe if you do it. As you're doing that, you may or may not be thinking about what's for dinner. If you are, that's fine. If you notice it, that's great. The key is noticing. And then once you notice, what are the techniques to kind of, activate the parasympathetic part of one's nervous system?
Let me put yoga on my list, because we got people in the Instagram comments talking about yoga is truly necessary. So y'all on to something. Yoga, because in my everyday life, just slowing down is like that. It seems like something I would have to work on and practice on.
Yeah,
I saw where Lynette, she wrote that somewhere along the lines we learned that multitasking is a gift.
yeah,
Absolutely. I love that.
yeah,
Um, and I'm thinking just to slow down right now. True
yeah,
story. I go for my HIV treatment tomorrow, which is a bi-monthly shot, which has been painful for me.
yeah,
And so today I'm starting to already experience the pain that may or may not be there
yeah,
tomorrow. And so
yeah,
like, I'm having to like talk to myself. I'm not falling out of treatment, Ciarra. That's not an option. All right, so
yeah,
what we gonna do? So I'm thinking like, what can I do ahead of time and after the time to make sure that this is the most pleasurable experience as it can be. But I'm ready already. My brain is there in tomorrow already.
Do as yeah, sorry, yeah, as you are talking, I started doing something called ujjayi breath as you were talking, and it's also known as bellows breath, and it's a type of breathing where you kind of constrict your throat slightly, and you, as if your nose is in your throat. Anyway, it's called, maybe one day we can practice, but it's called dry breathing. And as you were talking, two things came to my mind. I started doing that breath as if I'm going to go for this injection and what I would do to kind of manage it. But the second thing was, I thought to myself, the body keeps the score. Your body is telling you. So it's not your mind. Your body is holding on to those experiences. So this is what yoga therapy is like. So in yoga,
Aren't you in school for this?
yeah, I'm in school for it at the moment. Yeah, yeah. So yoga therapy is different to yoga. because what yoga therapy does is it kind of brings all parts of a person to the table. So we do like a lengthy intake form and understanding like lifestyle factors and things like that. We don't diagnose, but we have a wealth of information. So it's like a college degree or like a university degree kind of study. So we're learning about chronic pain, we're learning about Parkinson's, cancer, asthma, depression, anxiety, bipolar, the list goes on. And it's so we work with the individual, like using like a holistic lens, looking at the whole, not just the body, not just the mind, actually external, internal. And then we are trained with different resources what to use. So with what you just said there just now, in my mind I went straight to regulating the nervous system. And actually, okay, I'll give you an example. I've got all these tattoos and they hurt. At the beginning it's okay, but after a while, like 3 hours in the chair, I'm like, this is killing me. And I do this breathing, and the breathing, it just takes my attention away. And all of a sudden, this thing about pleasure and pain, have you heard this thing about balance?
Yes.
That to me, that's the pinnacle, if we can find some kind of balance. And that is why craving for, like, I want sugar, I want this, I want I want joy and happiness and hope, and I don't want challenge and difficulty and pain and suffering. But pain and suffering is always going to be there, joy is always going to be there. Instead of craving joy and pushing away pain, how do we find that balance? How can we just find that balance? So as you were talking about going for this injection, I was kind of thinking about regulating your nervous system and maybe finding a breath that works for you, Yeah. So, yeah. That
Okay, I'm
must
going
be
to go find some. I'm really putting this on my list of things to do, some breath work.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to get like too deep, but are there any, like, is all breathing good? I think that's a good way. Like, can any,
Well, no. Yes and no.
okay.
Yes and no. So, I think that this is the key. This is the key that will be probably useful for most people. Breathing in and out through your nose. Some people don't realize, but they breathe through their mouth and they don't realize it. You don't realize it. But if you notice that you're breathing through your mouth, try to encourage breathing through the nose. Some people actually take their mouth at night so that they breathe through their nose. There was a tribe. I was watching this documentary. There was this tribe, and this whole tribe, they're all 6 feet tall. Teeth are white, and their teeth are really, really kind of like level, and they're really healthy. And what they do, they carry the babies. When the babies are born in this tribe, they carry the babies on their back and they swaddle them, with the kind of the scarf, so that the baby's mouth is against the back of the mum. And they do it deliberately so that the baby breathes through the nose. So they're training their children from young to breathe through the nose. So that's just one thing to kind of consider, as a universally kind of healthy habit. The reason that we breathe through our nose is because it can help to clear congestion, because our nose has got these little the little hairs on the nose, and it kind of like a filter. So as you breathe in the oxygen and you breathe out the carbon dioxide, it's like this filter. And when you breathe through your mouth, there's no filter. And also there's something called accessory muscles, which are kind of your chest. So if you notice, when some people are breathing, that's chest breathing, that's diaphragm, that's chest breathing, and you're using these sort of these muscles up here. But what we're trying to practice, and it's a practice, it's not something that just happens, is breathe through the belly. Now we call it belly breathing. So when you breathe in, imagine your belly comes out like a balloon as you breathe in, And as you breathe out, the belly goes down. Now, I want to touch on this for a little while because women in particular, we try to, like I say, I know when I was younger, if I'm putting on my jeans, I suck in my stomach and push up my jeans. Yeah. So I was brought up breathing in, like it's called like disorganized breathing, where you don't know if you're breathing in or out, and you've learned it's just different patterns that we've learned. I mean, we don't often think about how we breathe, but as you breathe in, the belly expands. You can put your hand on your belly. As you're breathing in and out, notice your belly rise as you breathe in, and notice it come down as you breathe out. That is something that I think is universal, that everyone can do. And then notice if you're breathing in your chest or breathing through your mouth. I used to do that, and I had to sort of train myself. And going back to your question, you asked a question about
is there any bad breathing?
Yes, bad breathing. Yeah, bad breathing practices. I would say that that's why it's important. It's so important to find what's good for you. Somebody told me recently that her daughter has bipolar and breathing doesn't work for her. She says, I don't know why, but she gets like worse when she's breathing. And I said, it's because of the carbon dioxide levels. That particular breathing practice that she's doing might not work for her, because some people with bipolar, certain breathing practices might make it worse. So try it. So if somebody suggests that you do a breathing practice, yeah, try it. And if it feels good, continue doing it. But if it doesn't, maybe it's just not for you. So it's what's called contraindications. That means, maybe you're pregnant, maybe, you have a particular condition like blood pressure, where there's a breathing practice called Bastrika, where you kind of breathe really quickly through your nose, but it might not be helpful for people with high blood pressure. Whereas I know some people with high blood pressure that do it and they feel it's right for them. So the thing about yoga therapy, this is the thing, we call ourselves facilitators, not necessarily yoga teachers, but yoga facilitators, because it's sustainable, meaning it's a practice that helps you connect with your body. It really helps you, and it gives you agency. So when we go to classes, or when we're watching YouTube, or when we're watching Insta, put your hands up, put your hands down, go left, go right. We've got different arm lengths. We've got different, stamina. We've got different conditions. So how can we connect with our body in an authentic way that feels right for us? I think, I'll say to you, when I got my diagnosis, I was what's called dissociated. It was from my neck up to my head. I kept everything up here, and I disconnected down here. So when my therapist is saying to me, where do you feel it in your body? I'm like, what is this man talking about? Where I feel it? I know where I feel it in my body. Because I disconnected. There's an actual name for it, anaxillary, I can't remember. But I disconnected so much that I don't feel. And it's taken time for me to feel and to connect with the body. So with yoga therapy, one of the things we do is what's called grounding, where we play, we will, invite the client to start off that practice with grounding, especially if they're kind of anxious. Most people might come to yoga therapy with some type of anxiety. If there's chronic pain, there's anxiety. If there's cancer, there's anxiety. If there's Parkinson's, there's anxiety. If there's menopause, there's anxiety. If there's HIV, there is anxiety of some sort. And that shit, sorry, excuse my language, in the body. So how can we join up the body and the mind? How do we kind of join that up? And that's where yoga therapy kind of comes in, where we can kind of, you have a facilitator to help you connect, not tell you. We've got loads and loads of options. There's chanting, there's mudras, there's breath work, there's different physical shapes that you can use for different parts of your body. But we'll give you the suggestions and you see how you want to use it. That's how yoga therapy works compared to kind of yoga. But I think yoga should be yoga therapy, but we've westernized it, you know.
Mhm.
And yes, somebody said the body scan helps relax the muscles and didn't know it was flexing. There's something that can help because you can use your body to help rewire the brain because it's all connected, isn't it? So, you know, a way to ground, maybe before you go in to get your injection and you're sitting down, tense the lower part of your body and then relax it, and then tense it and then relax it, because sometimes the body stays tense. So we're kind of sending signals to say, yeah, it's tense, but it's tensed in a controlled way because you're doing it. It's not the thought of the injection doing it. It's you saying, okay, I'm going to tense it and then I'm going to relax it. And then maybe I'll breathe, for example.
This is so wonderful. Like, we're getting so many compliments about how informative this is. How we had a beautiful comment from Bridget about how the cadence of our voices, and seems like folks are have tried yoga before. Um, this is hopeful. I saw Olivia's comment too. That was the one I wanted to go back to about how like my therapist did bring up breathing. And how that maybe okay, thank you. I love that CC mentioned that breathing exercise came from her therapist. Mental health care and mindfulness practices can and ought to support each other and go hand in hand. I agree. I also don't understand, and we talk about this in so many spaces, like an HIV diagnosis for so many of us is like traumatic. It
Yeah.
changes entire life, what comes afterwards, and like one of our community members, Masanya Trailer, one of my good friends, she says, like, if we treated HIV as a trauma, then how would that look?
I think she's absolutely right, absolutely right. And let's not forget, I'm not sure if you've heard of this terminology, but race-based post-traumatic stress injury. You've heard of that? You know,
Yeah.
the intersectionality of, you know, being born into a misogynistic system, being born into a racist system, and then getting, acquiring HIV, which is so stigmatizing. Because as we are wired as mammals, you know, we're social beings, and when you feel that social element is cut off, it's pretty difficult. I agree with what was it, Masona, what she said about it.
Yeah.
I feel it is. I feel it is.
And like reminding to stay here, like there are so many thoughts, and it's on top of the everyday things that are going on that
Yeah,
anybody experiencing life right now as a black woman in the United States, what we could be feeling right now as a black woman any part of this world for real. um so I'm dealing with that. Then HIV is somewhere in there with all the other stuff that everybody else could be feeling. Then you know whether or not folks are managing parenthood and all of that. Like, it's so many things going on, and sometimes it really does take me to take a moment to just like, and sometimes I see it like I, I can shut down. I get so overwhelmed, I'll just shut down and not do anything, and that isn't good. So I love your image of like the balance. Like, how can I achieve more of that balance more often?
yeah,
Those are questions that I'm asking myself, and I'm really excited to explore after this conversation.
yeah. But you know, I think I think that, like my HIV, it was like 10 years and I didn't say anything. Like I just completely, it's like PTSD for me. I just completely did not want anything, to do with HIV. So I kind of shut down for 10 years, not for like a couple of weeks or months, for a very long time. And that's what I do now. That's why I kind of feel that, when I decided to disclose, I had to be mindful and really present and really be in a good space to disclose, because of everything that disclosure brings. I've got a Caribbean mother who has close knits to her small Caribbean community. What will they say about me? And I have, I had a senior position at work and everyone knew me as, the Black female senior manager. What will they say about me? And I go on social media and I talk about HIV. What will the public think about me? But then I thought, well, actually, there's I drew upon meditation, mindfulness, and yoga to stay in the present moment. So, I'll give you an example of how it helped me the most. So, are we all right for time?
Yes, we have about 13 minutes left.
Okay. So I'll tell you this little story, and it may or may not help anyone kind of listening. But so I went through this kind of this very long journey of meditation and just really trying to pour all my energies into myself. And I got to a stage where I met someone and I liked him, and even before I told him about my diagnosis, I realized, no, did I realize at that point? Yeah, I did, because he said to me, "Can I see your Facebook?" I thought, oh my God, brother wants to see my Facebook. Because I remember when I met him, it was at like this speed dating event. He's got this big beard, and I thought, black don't crack, but white people. Anyway, yeah, I just thought, I don't know how old he is. I couldn't tell how old he was, right? Because he had this big beard, and I thought that's like an old man kind of big beard thing, and I couldn't tell how old he was. So we were kind of talking about having a date, organizing a date, and he said to me, "Oh, what's your Facebook?" And I said, I gave it to him. And then I've got my 3 big grown children on there. So he said, "Have you got kids?" And I said, and then he said, "How old are you?" And I said, 49. "How old are you?" And he said, 29. And I nearly fell off my chair. I thought, 29 years old, flipping hell. Anyway, so at that point, I hadn't told him about HIV, but obviously my head was going, what are you doing? Are you even going to bother go on this date? And then you've got, why bother? Because this man is 20 years younger. Just don't even go there. And then I said to myself, why don't I try to stay present? Why don't I try not to run away from the fear? Why don't I just be in it and not crave that everything's going to be wonderful and not push away and get scared of the hurt, but just go with it? He still wants to go for the date. So let me go for the date. Get out, let me see if I can put my head to one side for now and just be with it. So I went on the date and it was amazing and I loved it. And then after the date, it started. How can I tell my children? They're similar ages, for God's sake. This is embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not Madonna. I'm sorry, like, what is all this about, right? And I thought, how, so it was going in my head a lot. This is a white man. He's from Romania. He's younger than me. Like, we are the opposites. But then I just kept saying to myself, why don't I just let me just try and stay present. Just stay present, Louise. Just stay present. Try not to push it away. just try not to. I wanted to push it away because I just didn't want to deal with it. Some people could call it a lovely experience, people could call it a stressful experience, but whatever that experience was, I wasn't sure if I wanted it. But then I just thought, try and stay present. And I did. And I did. And I said to myself, now, this is just one example, but if anyone is dating out there or seeing someone, sometimes we worry so much about what's going to happen in the future. Is he going to cheat? Is he going to be rough? Has he got a nice print? What about this? What about money and solvency and all these things that I know us as women will go through our minds. But then how do we, if we think it feels good and it's a feeling and you know that feeling, how can you stay present in it? And if there are red flags, be present for those red flags, as well as being present if there are no red flags. Just be. But I know what I'm like. I'm looking for red flags. My head is already down the line. And the divorce, that's like 5 years down the line. And I had to really, 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 I had to try hard. And I did. And we got married. 5 years later. Yeah.
That's such a great story. That's such a great story. Because I could definitely see myself talking myself out of a conversation with someone that appears so different.
Yeah.
Good job, Louise.
Yeah.
Like, such a testament. I wonder.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. And 5 years later, and y'all got married. And so how long have you been married now?
I think it's I don't know, 2 or 3 years. I lose track. I think it's 3 years. We've been together for 7 years now. But I think the moral of the story is that that's just one example. We go for a job, whatever it might be, we get just so anxious. And I know HIV has made me even more anxious because my body hasn't forgotten how that feels. So what I'm doing now at the moment over the last few weeks, and this is through my training, the yoga therapy course that I'm doing. I'll be qualified next year, but one of the things that I'm doing is understand about interoception. So really trying to identify like where I'm feeling it in my body. A really quick example, I experienced a racist situation. And for the first time in my life, I felt it in my neck. Whereas before, I wouldn't even notice it in my body. I'll just be angry or annoyed or switch off and ignore it. But now I'm actually trying to see where in my bodies, where? I know with me it's neck, it's shoulders go up. So how can I put those shoulders down? And how can I be kind? I think the most important thing is being kind. There's so much advice out there. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. Do this. Don't eat this, eat that. Use this spice, don't use that. Exercise, but exercise this way. Do it this way, do it that way. My message is do what feels right for you. And if you find yourself getting stressed out, just thinking about what you're meant to be doing, maybe come back in slightly and just take your time and be kind to yourself. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Before we had this episode today, we reached out to our community advisory board to see if there were any things that they wanted to make sure came up during this conversation today. And I think that we've covered like so much and that we were able to capture it. I think a good question, to get on out of here with is what does joy look like to us? What does it look like to the audience? What does it mean to you? If you're still here, you can put your answer in the comments. I think that's, I loved your framing of the goals in life. So like one time it might have just been to be happy, but I am now this framing, like how can I get that balance, and like how can I maybe not fight so much for the joy, but to see how things can live. So I think what joy looks like for me is being able to handle those things as it come, and not go dark when things get dark around me. I think that's what it looks like for me. Not like wanting to always give up, like just knowing that I can get through here and like finding those techniques along the way. And some things that bring me joy just in the current moments, like music, and not all types of music. Like I need music with a certain type of beat to it that'll get me going, or
Uh,
just sitting in moments of solitude by myself bring me joys because
yeah.
everything's so crazy all the time. And I would love to be able to explore more of those things. And thank you for such an insightful episode today. I would pose that question back to you. What brings you joy?
Oh, wow. I think what brings me joy is what brings me joy is when I catch myself. When I go like that, catch myself, I feel like there's a head here and there's me. And like one someone on that shoulder, someone on that shoulder. When when I catch myself um in a emotion and I notice it and I'm able to send love to the inner child in me, because when I do that I feel relaxed and my nervous system gets calm. This is LL, it means little Louise. So the inner child in me, little Louise, the things that I didn't have when I was younger. So I think that brings me joy. In that moment I'm like, okay, give her some love. I'm working on it still, always working on it.
That little child, oh my God, that was such a warm. That little version of ourselves, yours still exists too. I'm like always, little CC.
Yeah.
I saw we are evaluation. I saw the link come up. Please, if you all could just take a moment to fill out the evaluation for today's episode. What that does is allows us to know that we are providing insight on topics that are interesting to the community and that we're not just making stuff up in our head. So if you could just take a moment and fill that out. So grateful. I saw a comment come up from Pablo saying what joy looks like for them. It looks like embracing and being at peace with who I am and giving myself the kindness and grace I often give to others.
No,
Bingo.
nice.
Bingo. I'm so here for it all. I'm not sure if you have any closing statements that you want to get on out of here with. It's been a joy, a pleasure.
Oh, yeah, I've just really enjoyed it, and thank you. And just, I think maybe my closing remarks are we're all in this together. Yeah. Mm.
Literally. Literally. Whew. So we'll go ahead and conclude today's episode of A Girl Like Me Live. This was episode 40. Thank you for making it such a, oh, it was so worth it. It was, oh, this
Oh,
has been great. Um, Again, everyone, the evaluation link is in the chat. Join us next month for our next episode of A Girl Like Me Live. Stay tuned to our Girl Like Me Live page, as that is updated often with information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, have a phenomenal day.
thank you, Cece.